because their door has been full. And it only takes one thing and everything unravels. The door comes flying open. Most of us at work are able to keep the door shut. And it might leak out, but we can keep it shut. But as soon as we get home, or perhaps on our way home, on the highway, the door comes flying open.
It's on.
What's on? Do I have to start over? No. Okay. So what do we do with these thoughts? I will tell you today that I am sick because of this. I am physically ill because of this. And years ago, people would tell me about self-care and all that kind of business. And I was like, yeah, I got it. And I did do some things on purpose. Like, for example, I would ride my bike 50K a day, and I would actually journal and be in the Word every single day. Hours in the Word. Because I knew the things that I hear in the day, I can't hold on to. But I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't quite doing it right because I absorbed everybody's stuff. And that's for sure why I'm sick today. Well, there's a couple of reasons, but that's one of them. So you pay now or you pay later. All of us will do whatever we need to do to outrun the door. So sex, drugs, rock and roll. For me, it was black licorice. Because as long as I was eating black licorice, the door didn't exist. As long as I was on my bike, the door didn't exist. And I was trying to outrun the door. All of us do different things. Most people will tell you, I haven't got a door. Okay. But when it comes flying open, well, I'll talk to you then. Because at one point or another, we've all had a door and it's been full. We can get rid of the door by doing some things. But let's say today we work hard on getting rid of the stuff behind the door. And then tomorrow, like yesterday, on my way to the church, I had a flat tire and I realized I had no gas. I was like, oh. So if I had anger, which I do not, it could have been a nuclear meltdown in the making. By the way, just on the anger side of things, just as an aside, I'll tell you that when I was in school studying, we were told about, I worked in domestic violence. That's mostly what I did. So I worked with the perpetrators. That was my job. But we were told about the anger that they had. And if I was to take your blood out of you in the middle of an anger fit and put it in a rat, we actually killed the rat. That's how toxic your blood gets. Do you think the Lord cares about our anger and about our thoughts? I think I do. I know he does. So this is what I know to be true. Hurt people hurt people. Because we lash out and we freak out and we do the things that, and honestly, it's really the people that are the closest to us that we hurt the most in it. It's the bummer. And healed people heal people. That's also true. I've spent my entire life, and when you hear a little bit about my story, you'll know why. I've spent my entire life making sure that I was healed so that my toxins wouldn't touch my kids. That was my goal. So I'm going to talk about the different kinds of thoughts that we have. And I'm not sure if it's in any particular order. But the first one I want to talk about is what the Bible talks about, the fear of God versus the fear of man. So tell me what your thoughts are. What is the fear of man? How does it look? Anxious? Can be anxious, yep. What else? Frustrated, yep, can be, yep. What else? Controlling, okay. Demanding, What else? Can't be myself. Why not? Yeah. What else? Yep. It's funny, the Christians and the non-Christians that come in my office, this is probably the number one thing that I see. The fear of man. Things that have been spoken over us change our trajectory in our life. And when the fear of man comes in, I'll buy you whatever you want. Will you be my friend? I'll drink whatever you want because will you be my friend? I'll do whatever drug you want if you'll be my friend. That's the fear of man. And I would say that it probably guides most lives that I see in my office for sure. They don't know it. The kinds of clients that I have, I've gone from, I did domestic violence for a very long time, sexual violence, and I mostly deal with sex crazy things. So abuse on one side and the perpetrators on the other. And there are lots of men who come to me and they say, I actually don't know why I do what I do. And they weep because they can't be alone with anybody because they don't understand it. But when we talk about their story, they've got at least 2 or 3 doorfalls. And everything started in the sex crazy things because they were trying to outrun the door. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, gambling, or black licorice. All of us have a something. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's shopping. And in the whole fear of the Lord and fear of man thing, it's what can I do for you so you'll be my friend, so you'll like me? Bob. Peer pressure. Yep. And it starts from little too. You see it in little kids. You see it in our dog already. He's just a puppy. Yep. So the fear of man and the fear versus the fear of God. If we knew, because we morph to whatever people want. You want me to be this? I'll be this. Oh no, you want me to be this? I can be this for you. And for you, of course, at work, I'll be this. So I change who God has created me to be because I need people to like me. And he goes, but I had a vision. I had a plan for your life. And you've gone down this road, and you've gone down that road, and you've gone down this road. And I just wanted you to go this way. But he waited. I have a song, and one of the lines says, you relied on earth to soothe you deep inside. All the things from earth that the world thinks we need in order to get better, in order to avoid the door. And God said, what a bummer. That's why today I want to be Lonnie Ray, because that's who he called me to be. Okay. So the fear of man is the first one. It leads to hypocrisy. Oh gosh. And I have a lot of people say, no one will be my friend then. If I don't buy my way in, drink my way in, drug my way in, they won't be my friend. Why do you think they won't be my friend? And I will tell you that most people can know if you're being genuine or not. And when you're not, you want to know about anxiety? Here's anxiety. I can't really tell who you are. I can't really tell if I'm safe to be with you because I don't know. I keep seeing you change. You're morphing every time I see you. You're with this person and you look like you're safe over here, but then I see this person over here. It's definitely hypocrisy, for sure. On Sunday, I'm here, I'm singing, I'm doing the stuff. And on Friday, where am I? For sure. The fear of man over the fear of the Lord. When people fear other people, they try to hide their mistakes in order to maintain a strong front. So I'm not genuine because I can't be, because then you might know who I am. And that's way too scary. There's always a quest for approval. What if I knew who God wanted me to be? Do you think that would be there? If I knew that since before the world began, he called me, he chose me, he created me for a special purpose, and no one else can do it but us. If I knew that, would I have morphed here, here, and here, and here? This is what the word says. The fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts the Lord will be kept safe. Or for they love the praise from men more than the praise from God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? The God of the universe says all these things about us and for us. And we'd sooner have somebody else go, well, I like your new car. Really? Proverbs says, a lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Works ruin. That's a big word. That's the fear of man. What about it? That's part of the numbing out, right? Yep. But it's a fear of, it's not a fear of God for sure. So the next one I want to talk about is identity. Because now on the news, everything's about I identify as this, that, and the other thing. Holy cow. Okay, so the first attack by Satan on Jesus in the desert was, did he say, if you're the Son of God? So the first attack was actually on identity right back then. And it's totally more about identity than I ever knew in the last 2 or 3 years. I do have lots of clients who are transitioning. I do have all the LGBTQ rainbow in my office. And they're just looking to be somebody. They're looking to be loved, and they're looking to be somebody. The war against identity is so huge and significant right now that it's infiltrating absolutely everything. Everything. I'm going to tell you a story about when, for those of you who never heard my testimony, when I was adopted. I was adopted by a pastor and his wife. And I use that term super loosely. Who abused me in every kind of way, every kind of day. And literally changed the trajectory of my life because of the behavior that happened at that home. And I would go to church and hear him preach from the pulpit, la, 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 and then I'd go home. And I was so, honestly, one of the number one things that comes out of abuse for sure is confusion. Because there's part truth, there's part love, there's part this, and there's part that. But confusion is a big deal. So, apart from the behavior crazy things that happened in our home, my dad used to speak these things over me. You'll never be, and I'm not going to say what he said, you'll always be a parasite. That was one. You'll never amount to anything. That was another one. But the rest I can't tell you. because they were so horrific. And if anybody walked in here right now and said that, I'd ask them to leave, and probably quite violently. It was horrible. And when I was 40 years old, I was feeling sorry for myself one morning. I'd gotten out of the tub and I was crying my eyes out. I have no idea why. I don't know what happened. And all of a sudden I said, he's right. I'll never amount to anything. I'll always be a parasite. And the other three things they'd always say. And the Lord said to me, who said that? Because he's been dead for 10 years. And I realized for the very first time that I'd become my own abuser because there was none there to give it to me. So I totally had convinced myself after all the brainwashing that that's what I was. And the Lord was like not even close. I wanted to tell you what he said to me that day. First of all, he said that I was the one that was saying that, not him. And he said, and you will amount to something. And here it is. This is what he said to me. Oh. It's the glasses. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth, and he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. And righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. And that's what he said for me. That's different than the lies I was given. What lies have you been given? And how many of them do you continue to repeat and continue to act out? I'll never be. I'll always be. Because all of us have a list. So the first thing we need to know for sure is that it's a lie. But let me talk about strongholds real quick. Oh, sorry. So this is what happens in the brain. Here's my brain. Don't panic. Here we go. That's my brain. And this is one side of the brain, and that's the other side. And one side of the brain talks to the other side of the brain. So as a kid, if I was hungry, angry, lonely, there was no angry. Lonely or tired, my mom would give me black licorice. Okay? And every single time she did that, my brain joined whatever this emotion was with black licorice. And we had lots of black licorice. So in my brain, it's probably bigger than that. There's a highway from whatever kind of emotion to every kind of black licorice known to man. And it's default in my brain, completely. I don't have to think about it. If I've had a bad day before I head home, there's licorice somewhere, and I know where it is before I need it. It's default in my brain. That's called addiction, by the way, just saying. So as an adult, I decided, I think I'm going to go for a bike ride instead. And I love biking. That's probably more of addiction than anything. So every time I felt these things, I'd go for a bike ride. So I started to grow a new pathway in my brain. However, then the winter comes along and always licorice wins. Licorice gets a little bit more. So it will take, I have to do this as many times as this or more in order for this to become default. This is a stronghold in my brain. And spiritually, it's a stronghold. So we can't just go, oh, let's just get rid of it. I have to do something different this many times, or have the Lord nuke my brain in order for me to get back to where it should be. That's what a stronghold is. And when he says we have to cast down every stronghold that comes up against the word of God, cast is the same word that they used when Lucifer was kicked out of heaven. God cast him out of heaven, violently cast him out. So we can't just say, well, we got to think differently, got to change differently. Maybe if we just don't do it. No. A stronghold is a stronghold in our brain and in our bodies. We have to cast it out, violently cast it out. Otherwise, it won't go away. That's what a stronghold is. And I see that all day long in my office. Is it addiction? Maybe. Is it anger? Maybe. Is it, I'll never be anything? How does that change your world? Well, I couldn't possibly. No, I couldn't possibly. No, and it sounds humility. That's that angel of light, which is part truth. Well, it's cool not to think too big of yourself. That's what the Bible tells us to do. Except for the other side of that pendulum is when we say, no, I could never do it because I'm not really good. It's okay. I can't really. I couldn't possibly. Bob, part turns into fear. Fear, anxiety, and all the other crazy things that we could use. Yep. We can speak life and death into each other, including ourselves. So the weapons we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. Casting down arguments and every high thing that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God. Since before the world began, I chose you. So anything that says, I didn't choose you, you'll never amount to anything, all that stuff. We have to cast it down. But this is what happens. Our doors are full, we're exhausted, or we're sick, or we're whatever. So we don't want to cast it down. We just absorb it. I know it's not true, but I don't really have the fight in me today. And then I don't have the fight in me tomorrow. And then I don't have the fight in me the next day. And I've just created another stronghold. I'll never be. Oh, by the way, this isn't I laugh quite often. I'll say, we're supposed to cast our burdens onto Jesus so he can take them, right? It's not a fly fishing casting, so you take it back. It's not a fly fishing casting back. It's a violent casting off. Okay? This is the same, I said what God cast Lucifer out of heaven. But if we fight the same battle using the same tools as the world, we will get the same result. And what are our friends seeing? What are our colleagues seeing? Help us, our God. Help us for the glory of your name's sake. What are they seeing? I've said that many times to God. Really, Lord? Seriously, what are people going to think of you? Because they're watching my life. And for those of you who don't know it, I spent the better part of the last 6 years in the hospital fighting for my life. It's a good day. But my belief in the hospital, I had the word going the whole time I was in there. I had worship going the whole time I was in there because I needed that to be feeding my head. And not that you'll never amount to anything. God can't heal you, whatever that is, blah, blah, blah. hours and hours and hours. I listened to the word, and hours and hours. When I was too weak to do anything, they put worship on and I didn't shut it off the whole time I was in there. For months, literally for months. We need to wage war and take the word and fight the fight. Not just go, well, I don't know. I tried my best. I did the thing. I don't know what to tell you. I'm too exhausted to help. Well, then get someone else to pray. There must be a response in our bodies that shows the enemy that he has warred against my very soul, and it's a lie. It's a lie. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And until we know that inside, the enemy goes, yeah, but. What did he say to Jesus? Are you really God? So that's what a stronghold is. So if you're discouraged or exhausted, it's easier to just give it away and give into the lie. But we must fight. Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So when I was a kid, I was going to be a concert pianist. And practiced. And after school, practice. Everybody would go out and play, and I'd just be practicing. Thousands of hours. Went to university, 8 hours a day, practice. Like, it was serious. It became my God. God had to take it away. But it was serious. I was doing the thing. And I remember thinking, someday I'd like to just go out and play with the kids, or go and ride my bike, or I don't know, anything but sit there in that little cubicle and practice. But I did it. I actually quite enjoy playing. But that amount of playing got a little bit out of control. So I did thousands of hours of playing the piano. Then I took up biking and swimming. Spent thousands of hours in the pool and more on my bike. And there were days going up some hills that I was like, okay, whose idea is this? Because I always biked by myself. And I'd go up the gnarliest hill. I could go up, coming down. I'd have the brake, because I was so scared to come down. But I would go up those hills. But no one was telling me I had to. I just did. And halfway up every so often, it would be like, and whose idea is this? But the Lord was building into me perseverance. Thousands of hours doing this, thousands of hours doing that. How many kids nowadays do thousands of hours of anything except for playing video games? And then, of course, I spent thousands of hours in the hospital. And here's the story. Just before I ended up in the hospital, I did a triathlon up in Fort Nelson. And I was a biker and a swimmer, so that was easy. Running, me. So the week before the run, my daughter says, Mom, you got to go and at least try the run once. And I was like, well, I don't care if I walk it. I just want to finish the race. No, Mom, you really should go and you got to try the thing. And so I go out one night and I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to start the run and I'm running around and I get about a block. It's a 10K run. And I'm like, whose idea was this? And in my head, I'm just going, just shut up and keep going. Just shut up and keep going. So I'd run a couple more blocks, a couple more, whatever. Anyway, I ran the whole thing. I came back and Keita goes, well, how'd you do, Mom? Well, I ran the whole thing. I said, but the whole time I was saying, shut up and keep going, because I had to still my mind from all the stupid things that were coming into my mind to tell me that I couldn't or shouldn't or whatever, or couldn't do it. And on the day of the race, she made 3 t-shirts, one for me and one for her and her girlfriend, and they would show up on each corner of the run that said, shut up and keep going. I still have that shirt. And it's made it through 2 masters and whatever else, because it was like, sometimes you just got to say, like, seriously, shut your head up and keep going. Because that's some days that's what it's like. So not very long after that, I end up in the hospital in Kelowna. And fairly serious stuff. I'm having to go in every other day for 5 hours for infusions because my body's out of control. And surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery. Infusion after infusion after infusion. And this one day, I have an ostomy. And one day, the ostomy blocked for the 100th time. And I'm in the middle of the night. I don't drive at night. In the middle of the night, it's raining in West Bank in Kelowna. And I can't see anyway in the dark. It's raining really bad. I drive to the hospital because I know I'm in trouble. And I get there and I'm just like, no, I am not going in the hospital. I'm not going in one more time. I just can't. I'm fed up of all of it. This is probably 3 or 4 years in, and all I've done is go to the hospital. And I get into Emerge, and I stand at the door, and I go, no, I am not going in. And I turn around, and I drive home, of course, which was a loser move, but I was not going in the hospital. I couldn't do it one more time. It was in the middle of the night, which I don't do anyway. So within a couple of days, of course, I end up in the hospital now for 6 months straight because I delayed the you should have gone and stayed thing. And there was a bunch of mistakes made. So the doctor says to me, you're playing Russian roulette with your life. And I said, what are you talking about? I've done everything you've said to do. You need to stay in the hospital and you need to stay until we can fix what we need to fix. And so now I'm on 13 hours of IV every day. And that's the fixing of the things you can fix. So consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. Because you know the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you can become mature. I'm hoping I'm getting mature. But you know, I have to say, there was a time when my youngest sister, my older sister and I were both adopted. And it was kind of my older sister left when I was 10. She ran away and she never came home because that's how bad things were at home. So I was left there with my younger sister, which is their biological child. So it was a total different deal. And she had everything. She was spoiled rotten. She got everything she wanted. She never walked across the street for nothing. Everybody did it for her. Here's the new car. Here's the new thing. You don't have to work. Don't worry. It's okay. But I remember one day thinking, I'm pretty sure she's never even taken the bus across the city. She wouldn't know how to take the bus across the city. And now she's got kids. And I thought, you know, if something happened, she actually probably wouldn't even know how to get her kids she wouldn't know how to do it. She would not be able to do it. I am grateful. I'm grateful. Because as things get weirder and weirder in the world, I need to be able to stand. My thoughts need to be lined with the word God. They have to be. Or the enemy is going to come in like a tsunami. I'm grateful for every time I went into the hospital because I learned a different thing. For every stupid thing that the doctor said, because I went, no. Because greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And all God's promises are yes and amen. And that's what I need to feed my soul with. Not the crap about, yeah, but you'll never be and you'll always, what? Why did God die on the cross if that's what I'm going to believe? But there's many people, and a lot of Christian people that come into my office who say, he would never really choose me. He would never really call me to do anything for him. I'm pretty sure that probably breaks his heart. Like with our kids, oh, you see the potential and you kind of go, come on. He knows the potential, never mind sees the potential. He knows it because he put it in you. He birthed it in you. So let's just quickly go over the renewed mind then. It says, the Lord says here in Jude, You need to build yourself up in the most holy faith. And just like I would train daily for the triathlon, we need to train daily in the Word. I heard a speaker one time say, he asked, how many hours do you spend working out and buffeting your body and doing all the things? And it was hours and hours and hours a day. And then he'd say, how many times and hours a day do you spend buffeting your mind? And I would say, and how much time do we spend buffeting our mind in the Word? Because that's what's feeding us. You must train yourself up in your most holy faith. This word actually means to build a superstructure. It's not referring to building a foundation, because you should have already had the foundation. Now we're going to build a superstructure with God's help. One that can't be blown over. This is a building. And as the designer continually instructs you, the building would get bigger and bigger. To read his word and search for Bible verses that you can pray over any situation. And you can pray his promise over yourself. Being intentional about embracing, meditating, praying what God said over your life. It can't be passive or occasional. We must literally be embracing the word like it is food. The final thing I'll just talk about is the renewing of the mind. So if we renew our mind, the first thing I think I learned was I'm able to believe then God for the miraculous. Because he's the one that's telling me the scoop. Can he heal me? Absolutely. It would be crazy. I'm not joking. He'd be building all sorts of new parts of me, but I'd be like, okay, I've often said as I prayed it, okay, Lord, so how's that going to go? I'm just going to be sitting there and you're just going to build a whole bunch of new things. It'll be crazy, but okay. It connects us with the true godly self-esteem, not the one that we make up ourselves. The biblical self-esteem is to believe what he sees and what he says for us. We believe his word over everything else in our life, over the radio, over the internet, all the things. If I spend more time receiving input from the mainstream media than I do it in the Word of God, then my depression is self-imposed. So is my anxiety. I'm going to say that again. If I spend more time receiving input from the mainstream media than I do in the Word of God, then my depression, my anxiety is self-imposed. The renewed man is free from anxiety. When we live fearing to make a mistake, we can be ourselves in front of God. We don't need to be anxious about anything. That's what he says. Be anxious about nothing. The renewed man is not fearful of making a mistake, but it's more fearful in not taking a risk in faith that God will do whatever he'll do. The mind of Christ is not something to be put on you. It is what you were designed for. And the seamless connection between the design and the designer. What are the patterns of this world? What are we following? We're following the anxiety. 2 years ago, like during COVID, I would say 80% of my clients were anxious. 80%. 80%. Pretty much everyone. And out of control anxiety. I truthfully don't know what I would have done in the middle of all that if I didn't know there was God that had a plan and a vision and cared. Crazy. When I embrace what God himself has declared over me, it's transformational. And a transformed person can transform a city and can transform a nation. So, any questions about any of that? If anyone would like prayer at the end, we could pray for you. If there's some thoughts that are particularly plaguing you or whatever, we can pray for you.